Hi everyone, welcome to our weekly Q&A session, and today it is my pleasure to welcome here our coach Brittany. So, hey Brittany, how are you today? It's really nice to see you.
Yeah, it's great to be back on here. I'm doing pretty well. Just getting over some colds, but besides that, doing well.
That's great to hear. Okay, so I think we can start with the first questions. And actually, we had two questions that we haven't responded with Coach Chris last week. So let's start with these ones. The first one is from CLOCG. Do you have a strategy for what you do with your mind when you first lay in bed to try and sleep? Like meditation, counting, imagining a story. Is it different every night? So
Yeah,
what do you
so
think? Yeah.
for me, I don't really have a strategy. My mainly what I try to do is just let my brain do what it's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because I find the more I try to control what it happens at night with what my thoughts are doing, the more anxiety and hyperarousal I have because now I'm trying to control my thoughts, which that
Mm-hmm.
never works out because that just we can't really control that. So usually, for me, and what has worked in the past when I was trying to recover from insomnia is just trying to just allow my brain to have those thoughts and just notice them, be aware of them. Um, Sometimes I would do like meditation if it felt like just a nice thing to do, but I found that if I did it with the intention of trying to get myself to sleep, then it only created more struggle. But I did actually enjoy meditation
Mm-hmm.
as because it was a nice thing. It made me comfortable and helped me feel at ease. But I had to really find that, just know what my intentions were when I was doing certain activities before bed, while I was laying in bed. And yeah, so sometimes just being there, being aware of your thoughts, and trying not to be too judgmental of what is going on. Because oftentimes, if we can just allow it to be there and kind of be like a little cloud in the sky that's whisking by, that can
Mm-hmm.
help it just go and float on by. And naturally, your brain will get tired, and eventually you'll fall asleep.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for sharing, Brittany. And I totally agree with what you say. Like, when we try to do anything like meditation, counting, imagining, counting sheep, then very often there is this hidden intention behind it. Oh, I hope this will make me sleep. So there is a lot of control around this, and there is a lot of judgment connected to all this kind of thinking. So it's really helpful to be mindful of our intentions. Why do we want to do all these things? But really, letting go of all the judgments and let the brain do what it needs to do in the given moment, it's incredibly helpful because then we are reinforcing the safety to our brain that whatever happens is just what it needs to happen right now in this moment. And I remember the times when I was struggling with sleep. I really focused so much. I have to do this, I have to do that in order to sleep. And in, I kind of miss those times when I would just let my thoughts just uh, really flow, whatever in any direction they wanted to, and until I drifted away. And I really missed this kind of like in between state, not really awake, not really asleep, but this kind of like drifting off. And with all this judgment and control, I was just raising my hyperarousal. But learning to let go, it was just easier to allow this process to happen. So cool. I think we can now look at another question. And right, so we have a question from last week from Carmen. After several months of relief, I pulled the dreaded all-nighter last night. I find that when I'm able to get even a little bit of sleep, I'm usually good to go, but the all-nighters get me. Advice? So what are your thoughts, Brittany?
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that those can feel like really draining, and I was there myself, and sometimes it just felt like as long as you can get a little bit of sleep, you're gonna do okay, but like no sleep, yeah, can't handle it. And I think sometimes that all or nothing thinking can actually be what creates more of that emotional struggle rather than actually what happens at night. And so with that, you try to just notice like what are my thoughts around the night and how it's playing out, and how can I be a little bit more kinder and more gentle to myself. I know with my struggle, like in the beginning, I would often beat myself up way more if I went the whole night without sleeping. Whereas if I was able to at least get a few hours, then I noticed I just naturally was a little more kinder. Like, oh, I was it's okay because I was able to do this and I'll be okay today. But then if I got no sleep, it would like your day's ruined. You're not gonna be able to do anything. You're gonna be so tired. You're not gonna be able. And I was just kind of forecasting into what was going to happen without
Yeah.
even the day playing out. So I think in that scenario, just if you can just try to notice some of those thoughts that are a little more critical, and kind of create a new story, be a little more gentle to yourself,
Mhm.
that tell yourself, yeah, it's not comfortable to be up all night, and sometimes the next day does have some physical sensations that are tough, but I can still um, have an okay day, and I can still do a lot of things, and it doesn't mean that I'm gonna have a day that's ruined. And just kind of just slowly transitioning into a different way of thinking about it, and being a little bit more gentle with yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, the self-kindness is really, really helpful on this journey. And maybe what I would just add is that know that you basically did your best, Carmen. Whatever happened at night, it was the absolute best what you could do. And if it was an all-nighter, it wasn't your fault at all. And we very often antagonize the all-nighters, the hyperarousal, and all the nighttime wakefulness. But the thing is, when we look at it from the point that our brain is trying to protect us, it doesn't differentiate between a bear and a threat of nighttime wakefulness. It just sets off the same alarms. Then we can offer these self-kindness more towards ourselves, right? So your brain is giving you this wakefulness because it loves you and wants you to be safe. So it is our survival mechanism, and if we can approach it from this standpoint, it will be much easier for us to be kinder and to not struggle so much at night. Okay, and actually, I think a really nice thing happens in between as we've been answering the question from. She posted a question, a new one for today. And hi there. So, hi, Carmen. Huge fan of the channel. Thank you, and greatly appreciate all the help. My question is about the length of the struggle. I do well, but the fear always returns. It's been 7 years. It feels endless. So, what would be the comments on this question? It's not really a question, it's more like comments. So, what's your thoughts on the
Yeah,
length of the video?
yeah, I can emphasize with that. I know when you think about time and just the length of your struggle, it can create a little bit more frustration, and
Mm,
like, yeah. And I remember going through similar frustrations. Like before my insomnia got really bad, I still struggled for many years of like on and off, just sleepless nights, depending
mm,
on just what stress I had in my life. But I think if you can try to just be more like in the present and in the moment, and realize that how much struggle you've had in the past doesn't dictate what's going to happen in the future. And as you go throughout this journey, you change and grow a lot. So your ability to react differently and just approach what happens at night changes throughout that whole time, and that's a good thing because you're growing and you're learning more about yourself. So I think just being able to recognize like it's okay to have that fear. And fear is very normal. It's a normal thing that everyone has, whether you have insomnia or not. We all have our fears. Just if you have insomnia, it just happens to be a fear of being awake. But and just as I was kind of saying in the last question, just be a little more kind to yourself about the fact that yes, sure, there's still a little bit of that fear there, and you're still working through it, and that's totally fine. Most people, they struggle with insomnia for multiple years. It's a very common and very normal thing, and that's okay. And just think of it as like this is your new normal now, but it doesn't mean it's going to be forever. Right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I struggled also multiple years with insomnia, Carmen. So you are not alone in here. And you say like you do well, but the fear always returns. So maybe check out our speed bump playlist on the channel, and you might get inspired in there. So thank you so much for your response, Brittany. And I think we can go on. And we have a question from Alisa. So hi, Alisa. My speed bump has started from last week, and it feels like it will never end. I am more afraid of my anxiety, heart palpitation, and adrenaline rushes. They happen as soon as I go to sleep. I always have kind of a fear of anxiety. My question is how to treat this kind of fear. Right, so we have a question about fear of anxiety, being anxious about anxiety, all the symptoms that come up with anxiety, and what are your thoughts, Brittany?
Yeah, I think, that happens. So like a lot of us, like we start having anxiety, but then we start getting fear of like what's the anxiety going to create. But I think if you can kind of view it in a more like accepting and just embracing what is to come, that can be helpful. It doesn't mean you're gonna like it. It's still not the most comfortable having all those like your heart racing or your stomach in knots or whatever. Everyone's different what anxiety symptoms that they have, but just knowing that you are safe even though you're having this, it's not going to hurt you. You're still like able to continue, and it doesn't mean that it's forever either. All sensations are temporary, they pass, and if we can just allow them to be there without trying to resist them or trying to fight them, it can help it to be able to just pass on its own rather than this constant battle in our brain where like you're trying to fight it. But yeah, what do you think, Veronika?
Yeah, I totally agree, and we definitely don't want to fight these symptoms, but there's something we don't like, we want to push it away, we want to stop it. And I always, when I heard about the symptoms, palpitation and these things, what comes to my mind is the little exercise Coach Michelle has taught me. And she says, like, whenever these kind of symptoms show up in our body, of course, like I mentioned, our natural tendency is to avoid them or stop them. But with these tendencies, we are just sending a message to our brain that they are dangerous, they are a threat, they are a problem. And when our brain hears problem, it's almost excited, like, wow, problem, I'll send you some more. And it will keep sending us these anxiety, these symptoms all over again and again until it hears from us that, hey, feeling palpitations, for example, is safe. And how to show our brain that feeling these symptoms is safe, that's a question. And so instead of avoiding them, we want to lean into them. And we lean into them when we bring the full attention to these symptoms without judgment, just approaching it with curiosity. What you can do when you feel Alisa, when you feel the palpitations, you can place your hand on your heart and really stay with these palpitations and just feel for yourself and tell yourself, like, hello, anxiety. You are allowed to stay as long as you need. With this little statement, you are basically reframing the whole experience. You are showing your brain, like, hey, this is okay. I'm allowing it. I'm trying to accept in it, right? And when you just bring your full attention to these symptoms, to the sorry, to these palpitations, uh, so many times has happened to me that either the intensity has changed fairly quickly. Like my experience was that when I really brought the attention, just for a while, um, I started to think about, I don't know, random things. And then I stopped for a moment, like, hey, I was here sitting with my anxiety, with my symptoms. And where are they? They were gone. And this was like really interesting. And this has taught me, like, really allowing it without judgment, bringing the full attention, bringing the curiosity about them was something that showed my brain, like, hey, this is okay, this is safe. I don't have to be afraid of it. Of course, it's kind of like sitting with emotions. We don't do with the intention to make it stop or just avoid it or um, and so on. So we do it with the intention, kind of like befriend it, of befriending it. And this is basically the whole journey about. We learn to befriend the wakefulness. We learn to befriend the symptoms. We learn to befriend the anxiety, the fear, just all of it. And for some people, uh, the word befriend is maybe too much. So you can start to reframe it as tolerate. If you start to tolerate the palpitations, all the symptoms, everything, all the discomfort that show up for you, this is a really great starting point to reframe how you think about all this discomfort. So I hope this was helpful for you, Alisa. And right, okay, we have a thank you note from Carmen. So you're very welcome. And the other question is from Matthias. Hi, Matthias. Every time I close my eyes to rest or sleep, my mind starts to race and my body gives me internal tremors and heart palpitations. This goes until I open my eyes. Any advice on this? Furthermore, I struggle with mental exhaustion and brain fog during the day. This is worse when I'm at work, but it makes my mind feel like it goes into problem solving mode when it feels this way. So, what did you think, Brittany? Did you get it? Shall I keep it on? They were quite long. These questions.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll answer the first one.
I'll read the first one. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's. I mean, it's a very normal to have that, and it's just a sign of the hyperarousal when your mind starts racing and you're feeling all those sensations. That just means that hyperarousal is high, and your body is in state, fight or flight. And just sometimes recognizing that can be helpful, and realizing your body, is it's just, your brain is just trying to protect you, and it's doesn't mean that there is a bear like chasing you. It just means that your brain just is in that fearful state, and if you can just allow those. This is a similar question to one before. This first part, at least, allow it to be there without judgment. That can be very helpful. Sometimes, it's good to just be observing what's happening. And sometimes some people find that if they're just not able to sleep when they're in bed, that they want to do something else, something that's befriending wakefulness. So it could be finding something to do that they enjoy doing. So reading or watching a show or doing something that makes you just feel at ease, not with the intention of falling asleep, but with just the intention of making your body feel a little safer. So, and then the second part of the question was, yeah, so the mental exhaustion, brain fog going on, that's also like, very common. I think sometimes sleep can, create a little bit more of the symptoms when you have, lack of sleep. Even someone that doesn't struggle with insomnia, they're going to notice they're a little more tired the next day. That's very normal. But sometimes we also can play into this with how much, mental turmoil is going on, how much we, beat ourselves up over how we slept the night before. There's this emotional exhaustion that happens when you are constantly thinking about and being critical of how, you slept the night before, and then you're pressuring yourself to do well the next day. All of that can create a little bit more like awareness and of how your body is functioning, and that can also have you feeling like, oh, I am struggling more today. I do have more of that brain fog, whereas it might not have been as bad despite the lack of sleep. But it's just because you brought so much awareness to it. So I think it can be helpful just to notice that and try to be, a little kinder to with yourself, and try to put just a little bit less pressure on yourself. It's okay if you don't perform 100 your best the next day. You can still do okay, and you can still continue on your day. And it doesn't mean that every day is going to be terrible if you have bad sleep. And just think about days in the past where you had a day of little sleep, but you still did pretty well at your job, or whatever it might be that you're trying to perform at. So I know performance anxiety can be like a big one for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for answering, Brittany. And maybe what I would just add to from the first part of the question, bless you, the internal tremors. I had this too, and it was really awful. I felt like I was sick, literally. And I would say that our brain gives us or intensifies those symptoms that we bring attention to most. So if you react more to these internal tremors, then you'll get them more and more over and over again. Of course, a part of it plays the physical exhaustion in it, but it could be really intensified, like Brittany mentioned, with our attention and with our judgment. So I've answered basically this how to approach the symptoms in the question before, so you might want to watch it. And from the other comment, what I wanted to share is the mental exhaustion and brain fog during the day, and also like Brittany, you mentioned this emotional fatigue, like we call it this emotional fatigue, and this is when we struggle during the night, we worry, we are really chasing the sleep. And I would say that the tiredness the next day consists of two parts. The first part would be the physical fatigue, which is the fatigue that comes from not sleeping, and this is very normal. For example, someone who doesn't sleep because he's traveling at night during the night, or you're maybe partying or studying through the night, then of course you are tired the next day, but it doesn't bring you this mental exhaustion, this sense of doom, this sense of oh my goodness, like my life is over, right? And this is because we have the other part of the fatigue, this emotional fatigue, and this comes from the worry, from chasing sleep, from thinking about sleep, from trying to figure out how to sleep, from praying for sleep, and it consumes a lot of mental energy. And if you would look at a student who has an exam, and for example it takes several hours to take this exam, he's basically only sitting, but after the exam is exhausted, And this is the mental exhaustion. You are mentally exhausting your brain through the night. So instead of like chasing work, instead of trying to fall asleep at night, try to befriend wakefulness, maybe just resting, maybe more actively, by watching TV or reading a book, or just taking a walk in the middle of the night. Because very often people are or when I tell people about befriending wakefulness in a more active way, they ask me, okay, but what about I would be losing the hours I would otherwise sleep? And my go-to answer is, yes, you might be losing those hours, but you are doing much more important work here. You are working on the fear of not sleeping. And when in the long run, this is much more important, much more helpful. This is what helps you to sleep through the night in the future, not these lost a couple of hours that you might maybe sleep. So think about this, Matthias. And yeah, so if you would have any other questions or thoughts, just deep dive into our channel or um, place questions again. Okay. Actually, we have a question from Purple Canvas about an exam. I'm pretty young and having 3 hour important exams for a few months. For the past few 2 months, no matter how early I sleep, I just never sleep for every long time, like maybe just before sun rises. Mm, I'm finding it in particular hard nowadays. Just calm down, mainly stress regarding exams and results, and I am worried about my future if my sleep issues will continue. What is your advice regarding this? So, maybe you are really great one to answer this question because I always, when I have a question about performance anxiety and how will I perform on no sleep, I always go to your experience, like have you did a triathlon, Ironman on and
Yeah.
off sleep. So the word is yours, Brittany.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to struggle so badly with performance anxiety. Anytime I had a race, I would be up like super late. Or even like I remember in college, I had nights where if I had a big test the next day,
Mhm.
I also would be up pretty late. And I remember actually one time in college, I had a big final exam and I was up almost the whole night. And then during the exam, I actually fell asleep. It was awful. Like,
Okay.
worry about the exam, and then I fall asleep. But yeah, and I think performance anxiety is it's tough because you feel like you need to sleep in order to do well. But we have to break that correlation between sleep and how we're going to do. Like, you have to break that connection because sleep does not really determine how you're going to perform the next day. Sure, it can make you feel a little less fatigued, but there's so many factors that go into your performance. And yeah, as Veronica was saying, I've had experience with that. Like I did when I was struggling with insomnia, I was also training for a Ironman triathlon, and I remember the night before I felt like I had so much pressure that in order to do this, I had to sleep. Like there was no way I could finish without sleep. Like my body just wouldn't do it. And long and behold, I was so giving myself so much pressure, and there was so much anxiety. I was up like pretty much the whole night, but I decided I'm just going to start it anyways because who knows? I paid for it. I might as well do it. But yeah, actually, was just started to give myself a little bit more kindness and be like, okay, it's okay. You can just keep going. And I was able to do the full Ironman, and with no issues really. Sure, I was tired, but that's very normal. Anyone would be tired doing an Ironman. If you're not, then that's another story. But I think it's very important just to give yourself some grace. Realize that it's okay to um, feel that anxiety about how you're going to perform, but also realize that sleep and performance, there's really a very, very fragile correlation or benefit between sleep and how you perform. And there's
Mhm.
many people that have been able to do well on tests and well on races and well on like job interviews or whatever it might be, despite sleeping very poorly the night before. So it's just taking away some of that pressure, I think, can be very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with Brittany. And maybe what I would just add is that hyperarousal is not really something that helps us sleep. It is kind of like an obstacle to our sleep, right? It is the break in our sleep system. But hyperarousal is also something that helps us think fast, have the energy to either fight or flight. So it's actually something that helps us to perform and also in the exam. My insomnia started when I was at the university, and I studied for my final exams on basically no sleep. I passed my exams on basically no sleep, right? And so, you know, I found that this part of the brain still had the ability to learn, to gather information, and to perform. And especially in the day of the exam, I stressed myself so much that I was thinking so fast that I really could perform and I could pass my exams, right? So um, this is my um, this is maybe my advice. Don't be afraid of hyperarousal proper canvas, and the less you can attribute the sleep for, like the less you can attribute the sleep. Like there is something you can check on our channel, the secondary attachments, and so I mean. The less things you attribute for sleep or blame sleep for, the easier it is for you. If you can find at least one day when you perform in on no sleep or after a bad day, this helps you. Just in this one piece of evidence helps you to kind of like uncouple the sleep and my performance, and there will be at least one layer that you remove. You will be a tiny bit less of not sleeping, and when you are a little bit less afraid of not sleeping, you ease the pressure and and the sleep is more accessible to you. So good luck with your studies, Purple Canvas. Good luck in your exam. And if you have any other questions, just let us know. Okay, we have one last question for today, and this is from Waller. Do you have any suggestions for what to do when you get out of the bed if unable to sleep? Is it better to just rest and not read, etc.? So, what are your thoughts, Brittany?
Yeah, I think for that, that's a question about befriending wakefulness. So I think for everybody, that's very individual. Um, but ideally, we don't want to put any rules around it.
Mhm,
So, like saying you should get out of bed, but you shouldn't read, and stuff like that. Just the more rigid you make it, the more
mhm,
like and you're trying to control things, and that often leads to just more of that pressuring, hyper arousal.
mhm,
So yeah, with befriending wakefulness, we're trying to just help our brain feel safe. What doesn't mean we're trying to do something that will help us fall asleep.
mhm,
Kind of that's defeating the purpose. So like it could be getting out of bed, and it could be reading if that's something that you enjoy and that just makes your brain feel at ease. Or it could be getting out of bed and just relaxing on the couch and being your thoughts and feelings. Or it could be even staying in bed, watching a show. Like there's so many ways you can befriend wakefulness. Some people like to play games or
mhm.
um, watch something on their laptop. Like there really is no rules around it. the main thing is we're just noticing how it makes us feel like if it makes us feel like we're enjoying being awake, then that's a good sign. If it makes us feel like, oh, more anxiety about why is this not making me sleep? Why am I still awake? And you start to notice yourself monitoring, then that might be a sign you're not exactly befriending wakefulness anymore. You're just trying to find a way to get you back to sleep.
Yeah, that's true. And so, yeah, just to sum it up, it's not really the action. It doesn't matter what you do. It's the energy you give into it. So it's the energy and the intention. And just maybe you can ask yourself, what is the second best thing I would like to do right now? Of course, the first one would be sleeping. Everybody would like to sleep in the middle of the night. We can still keep this preference, but when we know that we can't control sleep, we can just find the ways, explore what we feel comfortable to do in the middle of the night. We have had students that have started a new hobby at night, like for example, learning playing a guitar, or crocheting, or I don't know. Um, there are really many ways, but it's uh, about being learning to be okay, creating new memories, because our brain has many bad memories of us struggling at night. But when we start to create new memories, the good ones, nice ones, then our starts to melt down. And when there is no fear, our brain feels safe and allows us to sleep. Okay, so that was it for today, and we have a thank you note from Purple Canvas. Right. Thank you so much for being here, Brittany. Thank you so much for everybody posting your wonderful questions. I wish everybody a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week. And I will see Coach Brittany some other time. So bye bye, everybody.
Bye bye.